Hey everybody, welcome back to the Turin Giants for a double. I'm just kidding. Maybe is it a double take? Because we have triple, double D, triple D. We've grown our titties in this case. We've gone from the double D to the triple D. So today we've got a special guest. His name is Lucas from the Calcio Merchant. So yeah, Lucas, you wanna give yourself a brief introduction?
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? I'm excited to be here. Long fan of all the work you guys have been doing, whether it was back on SoundCloud or on better production like Spotify or YouTube, all the newer stuff. So just excited to be here, liven things up, add some passion, have some fun, and maybe be a little controversial with some stuff, sure. But I'm just excited to get going, guys.
Yeah, let's do it. It's exciting.
Yeah, back in the day, Farhad used to be a SoundCloud rapper, so I used to be dropping those mixtapes back on the SoundCloud before he decided to take his talents to Spotify Beach. LeBron James reference for those that don't get it. So today's topic, guys, we're going to be talking about our friend Helicopter. No, we're not going to be talking about Helicopter, but we're going to be talking about a question that she presented. So if you guys caught our Spezia pregame show, Dave and I kind of briefly touched on exiting players and potentially incoming players. And that kind of opened up the door to discussing about rebuilds. And seeing how Dave and I are in the Western Hemisphere, where sports are a yee bit different over here in our neck of the woods, where we've got a little bit more kind of a franchise experience, where we kind of understand when teams go through cycles and rebuilds and such. And we got a couple of requests, and the big one from Ellie about talking about team rebuilding. So the question that was presented was, can Juventus rebuild outside of Europe, and what would be a better situation? So essentially what I'll kind of do briefly is I'll kind of go over with you guys and talk about what a rebuild is, and we'll all kind of chime in and give our thoughts on it as well. But I'm going to pull up this new app that we got. It's a whiteboard app. We actually got an official one.
Baby.
It is.
And just so everyone knows, we didn't really branch out that hard. Lucas is 30 minutes away from Dash, so it's not like we're giving you like an Eastern or European.
Yeah,
we're just giving you more America here.
Yeah, I am too. I'm like 20 minutes away.
But here it is, Dash's fancy whiteboard. I'm so excited.
And the funny thing is, giving you guys some backstory on this was Dave and I were looking for whiteboard apps because the one that we used on the live stream was absolutely atrocious. And apparently I had this installed on my computer the entire time. I just didn't realize it. So the more you know.
Yeah.
It's Bones, if you make a boomer joke, we're blocking you from the channel. But anyways, so kind of going on our little graph. So I'll kind of give you a graph of usual kind of what a rebuild is. And I like to simplify by making a graph. And usually what happens in a rebuild is you start getting to a point. So this point here, what this is this is going to be your ceiling.
Like the one that I punched on that offside goal the other day?
Yeah, that's on Twitch. That's on Twitch, everyone, by the way. So this is essentially your competitive ceiling. So this is where your club has reached its absolute potential with the coach, with the players on hand, and that's it. Usually most of the time it's, winning a championship, or in this case, with us, was the 2017-2018 season when we got eliminated by Real Madrid out of some baloney. So what happens is usually in this indication, so when you're in this point, coaches do one of two things, or not coaches, but franchises do one of two things, either blow it up or go all in. In our case, we did neither, so we didn't. So what happened is you added the addition of Ronaldo that season. So this is going to be essentially, down here will be 18/19.
So your timeline.
That's our timeline. And then this is going to be, I'm going to do this player quality. So this is going to be PQ.
I can't wait to the wall of algorithmic equations just across the whiteboard, and you just go Rain Man on us.
Hey man, I'm an engineer, so I got that stuff. I got this stuff on lock. All right, so 2018-2019, Ronaldo's first season, we're still at the top. Pretty dominant, Champions League favorites. And then we go into the Sarri season, so the 19/20.
Mm-hmm.
We're essentially projected favorites, but you can notice that there's a sizable dip because, we get a new coach. So we kind of start going down. And then we go into the Pirlo season. So I'll draw another text box over here. So the 20/21 season. And then just to make this easier on everybody, so the 21.
And until our eventual demise in 22, 23. Is this an end of the world podcast? Do I need to get the tinfoil hat out?
Joke's on you. This is a pre-recorded video, so not even. So what happened was what Juve did, and this is kind of criminal on their part, was instead of going for the full commitment, they kind of had a linear progression. Guys, and this is more so of player quality, not like, positions on the table. So like, I understand that this season's still ongoing and technically we're second place with the -15. But if you're to compare the player quality from the previous years, the player quality has gone down.
You're also comparing against the rest of the league, right? So you can
Yes.
argue the player quality in the rest of the league has gone up as we've gone down. More graphs. We won't get too far into it.
Yep. So if you were to, and this is kind of my like normal rebuild map. So usually when you hit your ceiling, usually most teams, what they do within the first season, they liquidate all their assets, whether they release them, trade them, or remove them. And then you kind of peter out this is where you start playing the youths. So the youngsters get played in this position. And then you kind of start, the upwards trend. If you were to look at it from a whole. So let me draw this here. So normally this is going to be your ceiling. You decline, you liquidate assets, and you go here. And then you get to the point where your youth gets the experience, kind of like Arsenal, guys, to be honest with you. If you want to see a youth rebuild, Arsenal's probably the perfect example for this. So like, for example, with Arsenal, it was before Arteta was their coach, it was Unai Emery. So they were kind of competing for Champions League, but they kind of just said, bleep it and screw it. So they sold everything. Aubameyang, a lot of other players left Arsenal as well. And then you had Mikel Arteta. And this is where you get your Sakas, you get, trying to think of the one guy. Oh, yeah. And then Odegaard as well. And then their striker that they have.
Yeah, just for those young guys. Yep.
You got it. So then they get their young players in, and then Arteta, like his last 2 seasons with Arsenal weren't the best, but that's when, the young players grow. And then this is essentially kind of Arsenal moving on. And this is where Arsenal's heading towards this season, where they're in that upward trajectory going to compete for the league. So that's kind of what a normal rebuild model looks like. But if you look at our graph over here, we didn't do that. So what happens is there's some franchises, and notably the Detroit Red Wings of one, where you hit your ceiling, you're not going to go anywhere, but you don't want to commit to the full rebuild, so you gradually go down and decline. And you try to keep the competitive edge, but it just doesn't work. Like, for example, yes, we were competitive this season. Yes, we were competitive with this season. Yes, we were competitive this season. But then it just kind of falls off here. And then again, here, arguably we are competitive, but at the same time, Napoli, if we get the points back, Napoli's 15 points away. It's difficult at that point. And again, even with the result with Knots as well, where we didn't play our best football and we're not playing quality football. It's to be objective here, but we're not playing our best footy. So even so. So
you can say it's like a space vehicle re-entering the atmosphere, right? At first, you're just like falling, terminal velocity, you're good. Until you hit that atmosphere, and then you start burning up and there's nothing left. That's kind of where we're at now. We're just burning up in the atmosphere, free falling.
Yeah. But
watching happen in third person too. Like we're watching ourselves do it to ourselves.
Yep. And the thing is like when we look at it too, I would highlight more so this era here. So this is probably the best part for Juve. So this is essentially where you have Fagioli being introduced. You have Miretti as well. And then you'll, as another youngster, you have Sule. So you have these, that too. So like in this era, this is probably the first time in Juve's history that we've actually seen multiple youngsters be part of the squad in this time frame as well. Because there hasn't been a time in Juve's history where you can say that we had 4 under 23 players come up to the first team consistently and play consistently. I mean, technically you can consider Keane too, because Keane is still pretty young. But overall, you can look at that as well. And then if you look at outside of Bonucci and such, like you can technically put Gatti in here, but Gatti's not an under 23, he's not a next gen. But like, for example, also Dusan's 22 years old, Chiesa's 24. So you have a bunch of young players. But like, for example, the main thing is, and I think what Juve kind of established is these 4 are going to be your core. So what happens is So when we look at the summer, we actually have a pretty big outgoing list, and kind of going about it is we're arguably losing about 12 players from the overall squad. That's, reserves and the starting lineup as well. So kind of giving you guys this brief little summary of what a rebuild is. Now we got to talk about the Juventus perspective. So for example, currently we're in 7th place in the league. Again, we're 9 points away from the Europa League. We're technically in the Conference League. So the main question at hand is, how would Juve benefit rebuilding wise? Would we benefit being without Europe, or would we benefit and still maybe pull it off while being in Europe? So I'm going to open up to you guys and see what you guys think.
Yeah, first, and I'll let Lucas go here right after I'm done, just kind of giving the caveat real quick. And that is, there's a lot of financials at play, right? Particularly European football. You have obviously the tier systems, the different levels, Serie A, Serie B, Serie C, what have you, where if you go down to the second tier, especially not in England, good luck. You're not making any money. But same is true with Europe. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. We have to keep in mind, okay, if we do a complete rebuild, we're probably out of Europe. And as a result, we have to now rely on those youngsters because we don't have the monetary power to go out and purchase. But I think it's perfect as well because, Lucas, you deal with the youth academy. You see some of these young guys coming up. Maybe not quite at this level, but regardless, I think you have a good perspective here to see what it is at that level and having these guys growing up and getting into the game at more competitive levels. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, you got to find the right balance too. Like, it's nice. We have, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He just got back. Ilatarian. Is that how you pronounce his name? He was
Hatchard?
Oh yeah. So it's someone like him who, when I grew up, Juve, if you came to Juve, it was all about like kind of straightening you out. Like Buffon cut his hair, Del Piero like cleaned up his look and stuff. So you got to find the right balance of who to loan out and then who to give like the actual playing time to. And I think that's where they've done such a good job of kind of loaning out the mature guys, the Robellas, the Ranocchias, and then kind of keeping some of these younger guys that are hungry and they have the talent, but they need to kind of mature up. So then they're like watching the Quadrados, the Bonucci's, the Di Marias. So I think there's a lot to consider. I think this is Juventus, so you got to be competing on all fronts. Europe is huge. We didn't get to see Conte go far in the Europa League. Well, it was almost 10 years ago now. So it'd be nice to kind of see us go far there and compete. I don't know. I mean, I think, what was the list again? You said 11 players.
11 to 12 players. Majority of them will be out of allegedly.
Yeah,
so majority of them are out of contract.
And I would say a lot of those you don't even resign. Maybe Rabiot if he can continue the way he's going, but
can you afford him if you're not in Europe?
Exactly. So that's what I'm kind of getting at. It's if supposedly they said that the new board dropped their budget. I can't say the number at this moment, but if they did drop their budget, and if Juve are going to kind of be this all Italian young squad, like they keep saying, to kind of combat some of the financial problems that Italy has, opposed to the Premier League or other leagues, you're going to have a bunch of Italians. You still have to fill some foreigners. If you look at foreign players, they're going to be more expensive. So where are you going to get this extra money? If you're dropping your budget and if you're looking elsewhere to kind of fill in some of those holes that your Italian youth can't fill, it's going to cost money. So whether you're kind of re-signing some of these older guys, which is a bad idea, and giving them like a lot of money, or you bring in a bunch of younger in their prime players, it's going to be a lot of money. So that's why I think you have to stay in Europe as long as you can to get that prize money.
It's it really is a tricky balance. Because,
no, it is.
Again, if we want to look at it from the North American perspective, where it's a closed system, right? There's only 30 teams in the league to 32, what have you. If you do a complete rebuild, it's not like you're getting relegated. It's not like you're not in a certain other competition. It's the league. That's it. All you're going to miss out on is maybe playoff revenue, which is nice, but it's only a fraction of what you get in the other 80 plus games of the season, or baseball 160, So it's completely different in European football in this sense. So on one hand, blow it up, but on the other, I mean, we won't, but you can just talk the Super League, right? And why they're trying to go to the Super League format to make it like the North American system, so they can actually make proper teams and build instead of continuing to patchwork over patchwork, which is what a lot of teams in Europe really are. Hey, we got to plug this hole. Chelsea, you have $100 million, throw it at that guy. And that's what you get. And Chelsea, I mean, 666 million they spent for what? So,
well, and that's the thing. So, and just so our European friends don't call us American stands for American leagues, but the thing is like, so there's a couple of differences from American leagues. Yes, we understand. There's a salary cap. There's a draft. So again, there's a pipeline of talent and et cetera. The thing is so rebuilding in footy is interesting. It really is, because as an owner, and this is where I kind of get a little bit frustrated with the modern game. Everybody's looking at instant success. That is the first thing on their mind, is they're looking for instant results, and you don't really have time to build. I think one of the few coaches that has had time to build is Gasperini. He's been at Atalanta for a very long time. He's essentially set up their entire program and how they operate. So that's again, it's paying dividends for him. For Juve, and again, your top tier teams, because Milan and Inter didn't rebuild. They just threw crap at the wall and hope it stuck. I'm going to be honest. Because you look at it, like, for example, we grab Conte, we play a 3-5-2. Okay, if it works, great, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The thing is where I'm thinking, and this is where, and I hope this is what essentially answers Ellie's question, is when you're looking at it from a Juventus perspective. So one of our biggest negatives is the style of play. We can make the argument of whether it's Allegri, whether it's the team. It doesn't matter right now. It's not. The idea is yes, our play style is atrocious. When say that hypothetically we don't qualify for Europe this season, this summer is when you're allowed to make that huge philosophical change. Because the reason why I say that now is because when you went from Allegri to Sarri, that is a huge difference as far as play style and repertoire. Because Sarri is, my regista touches the ball 170 times a match and pings the ball forward and backward. Allegri's regista is, I take the ball, send it to the wings, and then we cross into the middle. So you're doing that. And then if you guys remember that Mercado, Rabiot and Aaron Ramsey and De Ligt were your big arrivals for that team.
And Chan, right?
Yes. Emre Can was the season prior, Allegri's final season. So that is your big, and Sarri didn't even use Chan. He didn't use Chan or Mandzukic. He froze both of them out of the club.
Yeah.
So that's the only players that you bring in, and then you don't remove players that don't suit your system, and then you kind of have this weird, and Sarri said this too, and we can be objective whether or not we agree with him, but he said this team is untrainable. And then you look at it where you bring in Pirlo, and Pirlo doesn't have a style. Let's be honest. Pirlo just got out of school and was like, okay, cool.
I just wrote my thesis.
I had a philosophy.
He had his thesis.
Yeah. So he had his thesis. And then again, you bring in McKennie, you bring in Arthur Melo, and you lose Pjanic that season. And then you bring in Chiesa as well. Still, you don't know what these guys are suited for or what they play. And then comes in Allegri's first season where Allegri loses Ronaldo and replaces him with Keane. So if you guys are kind of catching my drift, is you see the team's quality consistently decline, but it's patchwork. It's attempted patchwork. Whereas, like, for example, this summer, if we don't make Europe, or if we're banned from Europe, or we finish, whatever place we finish, but UEFA says, no, you guys can't play in Europe for 2 or 3 seasons, then you open the doorway.
Decision's made.
You rebuild.
Blow it up.
Yeah. But the blow up that I'm saying is then you look at maybe a De Zerbi. Then you maybe look at an Italiano. Then you look at, if you're trying to change your philosophy, because you're not going to Europe anyways. So it doesn't matter if you're first, as long as you're not in the relegation zone. So then to answer Ellie's question, for Juve, if Europe is off the table, it's easier for them to rebuild. If Europe is still on the table, it's difficult because you can't afford to lose that financial funding. Because, for example, if they're barred from Europe and they can't play in Europe, okay, they're like, all right, we'll liquidate this asset. We'll liquidate it. It's easier for them because, like, for example, let's use Dusan. And I'm not saying Dusan will leave. Don't take me out of context, folks. But for example, say that it's UEFA confirms that Juve can't play in Europe. So then Juve's like, okay, we can't play in Europe. We have to sell Dusan. We have to sell this guy. We have to sell this guy. We can't resign this guy. We can't do that one. And then Allegri, why are we paying him 10 million a season if he's not in Europe? So we have to liquidate that as well. Then it's easier for Juventus. So without being in Europe, it's a lot easier for them to rebuild because then they can liquidate assets and then they could say, okay, cool. We're going to give the next gen 3 or 4 seasons. Kind of like, again, what Arsenal did with their team. Because Arsenal wasn't in Europe for at least a season or two.
We laughed at them for a while. Yeah, they were kind of embarrassing, but they had reason to it that we now see in hindsight, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So when we're looking at it from that perspective, then yes, it's beneficial to miss Europe to have a complete rebuild. But at the same time, it's not beneficial to be out of Europe because you're losing the financial funding. So Juve is really in that catch-22.
Super League.
Super
League. We're not talking about that.
No, I mean, you're right about it. But like, it's just kind of how, at the end of the day, we're stuck in the middle. But I'll give Juve and I will give Allegri credit. And I don't know if it's because of injuries or whatever, but this is the first time we've seen 4 players from the under-23 team break into the first team.
With more on the cusp.
With more on the cusp as well. Because, for example, Heisen, Barinchera.
Barinchera's getting on the bench at least.
Yeah, Barinchera is being called up recently. So he's also a capability as well. Heisen's been absolutely dominant. We're going to see him play in the Serie A or Serie C Cup final. Which is going to be held at the Allianz Stadium, FYI for folks. But there's a lot of cool things about it, but I got to give them credit for that. But that's my thoughts for this. Do you guys have any final closing thoughts on it?
Yeah, Lucas. Now that Dash had his monologue, we're free to
long monologue.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I'm just curious the one thing that comes across in my mind is if we don't make top 4, because of the 15 points, or if, they add more points on it, then anything could happen. The FIGC really want to just take down Juve this season. The Europa League could be that step into pot 1 of the Champions League, and having all that extra financial money that could also help with your rebuild. In the way that we're going, I mean, Allegri, that fancy number of 61% win percentage right now, and we're at that right now. And if we keep going the way we're going, with the minus 15 points, we could be looking at about 62 points around there. If we keep going the way we're going, and that, if you look back at the last 5-6 seasons, that's barely enough to get you top 4. So it's kind of one of those things where we can't count on those 15 points being there or not being there. Should we go all in on the Europa League when we have such strong youngsters too that could just kind of focus on Serie A, focus on the Coppa Italia, and let these old guys like Sandro, Bonucci, Quadrado get their last hurrah in the Europa League, finish hopefully with the trophy, finish their legacy with us strong, and then just kick them out, I guess that's just like the tricky situation we're in. That's kind of how bad the management has been the last 4 or 5 years, that we're in this situation that we're screwed one way, we're kind of screwed the other. There isn't like a clear line, and I think it's going to really make or break Allegri. It's going to make or break some of these players and this management that's coming in, and the sporting director, whoever it is, whether it's Atalanta's guy, Milan's guy, Roma's guy, whoever they bring in, they got a big job on their hand this summer.
Yeah, I mean, they're all interesting thoughts. Of course, we're not coming out of this one with a hard, fast yes or no. I mean, just because I want to watch the world burn, give me the detonator, I'll blow her up. I don't care. But guys, let us know what you think. It's an interesting conversation, so let's keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. Again, guys, throw your comments in there as well, because we cover them on our next live shows, and we will be hitting you with a live show for the Knots live show as well. So we'll be giving you some pre-game action. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching this double D, triple D,
Triple
certain
D.
D, triple D take trademark.
Yeah.
Boom, cool. No other YouTube channels can use that.
This is the
But
club sandwich
It is
version.
the club sandwich. This is the club sandwich version. But anyways, guys, please again take a look at Lucas as well. Lucas will be appearing on our channel a lot as well. So please show him some love and some adoring affection that you give Dave and I too. Except just
Or
don't
better,
send
because you guys are horrible to
yeah,
us.
don't
You're
send them.
You're great.
Don't send them feet pics, guys. That's just weird.
Yeah,
but
I
anyways,
mean, I don't know why I still have them on my computer.
I know we gotta delete those, man.
Weird,
But
okay.
anyways, guys, thanks for catching this episode. We'll catch you on the next one.
Take care. Thanks, Luke.
Bye.